All right, daily trading recap with a terrible Christopher Walken impression. That was atrocious. Okay, let's get into a daily trading recap for this Wednesday, the 15th of December, 2021. Holy market, we got some Fed meeting today. They said they're speeding up the cutting back of their inflation-producing actions, which, again, how many times have they done that in the past? Who are the few times they've done that in the past that they said we're going to potentially increase interest rates and all those monetary policies that way, and then the market responds in favor of it. We're closing 1.5% in the green today, right back at all-time highs once again. Absolutely crazy to see. Qs are kind of doing the exact same thing, if not a better 2.2% day in the green on them bad boys. Absolutely load up. Let's go over some money market internals on the day. NASDAQ, $297 billion volume as of 2 hours, 20 minutes after the close. NYSE, $374 billion volume. OTC's $2.4 billion volume. Again, kind of the same thing that yesterday, just not a lot of beautiful price action. I wasn't doing any hard scans in the afternoon session, but just not really a lot pulling up. And we even had, well, that must have been yesterday, but not even a lot popping up on the mover scanner in pre-market again, too. Just very few of those small cappers pushing hard with news. We'll take what's there. We'll continue to go from it. I was 3 for 3 on the day. I cannot complain. Continuing to develop. None of those awesome. I don't think any of them were actually over a 10% profit, but close to it. And again, evolving myself that way to whereas before I would just totally limit myself. Like I wouldn't be taking any profits before that price action reached 10% profit. And I totally limited myself and turned a lot of potential winners into losers and tried to force a lot more out of trades than were usually there. So I think, especially as I'm still in this kind of paper trading, I'm doing my longs still, setting myself up a little bit more in my cash account through Thinkorswim. But yeah, still saying paper on the short side for right now, just to give me that little mental break and continuing to, as of right now, realign myself with how I'm viewing the stock market in general. And then we can get back to how we were of reintroducing the monetary aspect of it too, because it's, I think that's two totally different separate games that I have to deal with here. Of just one of being in the right tickers and looking at the right trades, and then dealing with the money side of it and understanding the risk reward aspect of all of it, and losing money, gaining money, and not attaching actual, now I keep saying that all the time, but not attaching actual value to the money and saying, oh gosh, well, I just lost a week's wages on that trade, or oh gosh, I just made a month wages on that trade. That's awesome. I can just quit my job forever now. But just taking everything with a grain of salt. And continuing to develop myself that way. So I wrote in my journal here too in the morning session, just as a journal's little psychology note. I've had like this little feeling of, I wrote overstretchingness. It was not a little overwhelmed-ish, but it was just like overstretchingness that I had 4 charts up, that I did a lot of due diligence today in preparation. I think it was because of a slower day that just allowed myself to say, hey, let's put in some more work here. Let's go way harder into the fundamentals. Let's look a lot at the technical data, the volume profiles on all these. Let's do more that way. And I think that preparation saved me a little bit when I did have that feeling coming on to say, oh gosh, everything's moving here. I was kind of in that sense of I was in trades, and they were going in my favor, but I almost for a second was just lost. And okay, what was my game plan on this one? Or what was I looking at here? And but then I could just very easily go back to the notes here that I had right in front of me and said, oh, okay, well, I already wrote everything down. I did the preparation beforehand. Okay, yeah, I remember. That's exactly what the game plan is. I just realigned myself to get back in the trade and get back in the game. So I think, man, great stepping stone today on that side of it to say, how many times have I done that before? I've gotten in that situation of just kind of haywireness and then just continued to keep pushing buttons and not dealing with that problem. But today is whereas I looked that problem in the face and said, I recognize you and I see that you're there, but I'm not going to allow you to win. And I'm not just going to let you linger around and stay around here. We're going to deal with you and identify you here now. And then you can keep moving along. You can go to the wayside. We'll let the work show for itself there today too. So great points on that for me and that I was able to write in my journal today. That is, we did fundamentals. Let's get into tickers now. BFRI was my first one, or one of the first ones here. Going to the long side. This is follow-up today from yesterday, as we're in this little cupish pattern on the daily. Did I mention this one yesterday? Or I had it on the watch list from yesterday after doing scans, because it did hit this little bit of bottoming range, or it did find a little bit of a bottom from that, what tried to be a reversal day yesterday. So kept it on watch to say, let's get a good scale here. I keep screwing around. So I kept it just on that watch just to say, okay, if it does anything potentially crazy, I don't think it's dead yet. So let's see if it has any life left in it. And then as we pull into the pre-market today too, sure enough, it does have a little bit of a move higher. We're passing some nice key hold dollar levels, $6, $7 in the pre-market here. So as a reminder for me too, 4 to 6-ish million floater. They do have like 4-ish million shares in warrants. And just the thesis for me going on this one, trying to identify, because you can only pick two paths, right, of long or short, of, do I want to be short this one? Do I see it picking tops here at any point too? And I could certainly make that case after all this the morning volatility there, and make a nice little case for a downtrend style play there. But in the same light too, and based off of that short thesis of looking for a top to short into, of, okay, it found a little base as a trade here to potentially curl up on that it didn't want to break to the bottom of. And I even, looking on if we can get a better perspective here. It can't give us further out, but this little range here, the same thing of, as it found in the other side of this cup, also produced the same type of ranges there. So it was hitting some key metrics from the initial first green day there, the first big percentage move day there. That was basing off of that little bottom that I found there. So based off of that short thesis that I'm preparing for in the pre-market, of going into say, okay, it found a little perk off of that. How much more could it go from there? Is it kind of a little bit exhausted? It's put in some decent volume here in I think it was the biggest. It did become the biggest dollar volume mover of the small cappers, the big movers on the day, over GRTX. That was in pre. So it did start to develop that, and says, okay, well, how much can this thing completely turn around? How much would it take in order to do that, to reverse this first red day trend here? And that was the thesis for the short, of recognizing that perspective there. But also on the long side too, it's a low floater. This thing could rip. And shorts are obviously underwater if they're trying to hold this thing for a consecutive day here in pre-market, if they were short at any point on that first day. And as we can continue to climb higher there, it does have more and more likely of a chance that it could squeeze, that we get to that point where everybody and their grandma who got short this thing on that previous first day would be in the red, and then be forced to cover, or just forced to be in that emotional state that, okay, now you're red, now it's pushing harder against you, now you're going to be forced to do something. So that first little trade, I figured myself out, and I got to get out of that habit that I'll move this little chart here on the long side for this trade that I went on today. I got to get out of this little habit of just buying right away in the morning session, just looking for that quick scalp that I think I got very hooked on in the hot 2020 market, where these things would just rip 10, 20% within the first 1 to 2 minutes. And I developed a bad habit that way too. So I think I did that exact same thing, just kind of buying right out of the gate as I thought it was continuing to perk within this little 4-minute window candle here right into the open, but then got told a lesson. And again, how many times have I done that? And I almost get filled on the exact bottom tick for what these little charts do. So slap in the face there, learning lesson, but did recover. Readjusted my mindset to say, okay, it's still holding, but VWAP still holding nicely. Obvious little risk level here. If it starts to dump, then I'm going to definitely know that it's going to be a short play today. It's going to be a more continuous fade for the exhaustive move that it had to try and reclaim in pre-market today. So nice little hold there at this. I got a fill at $7. Continues to bounce off of VWAP there. Nice little sell into 7.5, 7.6. We get a perk, little toppy there as it tries to comes back to a little rest, bounces off of VWAP, continues to hold, and this became a much easier trade. Like I mentioned, it became the biggest dollar volume mover on the day, so hitting up on everybody's scanners. More attention, more eyeballs coming to this one as for opportunity and liquidity in that sense. So it just became very easy to hold my last third of a position. I was only trading 3 shares, of course, for that cash account size for this like paper trading size that I'm still doing, but knowing that 3 shares specifically because it's like a $20 range, and it's also, I potentially would be with a big position be scaling out in thirds anyway, relatively. So easy hold then after scaling out, taking money as it's there to hold that last third as a lottery ticket, almost looking for $8 level range, looking for even break beyond that high on 8.3 here. What do we have? 8.25 on that day, 2 days ago. Look to test any of those levels in range and just kind of put your limit order there. Say, okay, yeah, I don't know where you're going to go from here. You could just have a little fake out breakout top and just peel back there, but or you could just go 10% even more from that breakout top. But I'm certainly going to take the rest off there at that point and be selling into the hype and not be just playing games and risking more than what is actually on the table with that sense. But respecting price as it was there, it did have another breakout attempt, a little intraday here for market hours. Rejected hard with a big red volume candle and a big red price candle as well too. That kind of bounced off of VWAP, and I still did have enough of a cushion from my entry to say, okay, I'm giving you a lot of breathing room to work out if you are going to work out, and because of how many times these things have faked out, and okay, it's under VWAP, it's breaking, but could we get a reversal to the upside here? But yeah, sure enough, that was an actual rejection with a hard, again, similar red candle with bigger volume to prove that, okay, this trend is done, at least for right now. So that was the case for the morning session, then had a little dump in the afternoon, but reclaimed before the close, and then sell off once again right before the close. Ludicrous that way. But great little win. Percentage move on there, yeah, I don't even want to do that math alone. Again, not 10%. I don't think any of these were a 10% trader from me, but taking profits as they're there and just locking and paying myself along the way, which is a very nice and comforting feeling to be in. After so long of a red string, just taking winners as they are there, making winners come about, increasing that win rate. That is the huge goal. BLU, I'll get into. This was the short on the day with CGMA that I'll get into as well. Third day surge, as I mentioned yesterday, kind of trying to mirror this trade off of SGMA that was the third day surge. Excuse me, from yesterday as well, that had a little bit more of a tank, and we played it very well of shorting in that exhaustive right out of the gate morning volatility, and then being able to play on the long side as it faked out a few little lingering shorts there that were a little too eager. So as a reminder to me too, 4 million floater, they have a negative cash flow. Oh no, that's a different one. American Biotech, this is 50 million floater. They do have, like, I see here that's showing they have a $200 million US dollar public offering in both Canada and the United States. At $8 a share, but I'm not seeing that really reflected in price or in the stock itself. So I don't know if that was already factored into the market or how that's being dealt with, but beats me still. Kind of adds to the short thesis maybe, and if price goes against me, then respect it here. That's just kind of crazy, or maybe I'm just blowing smoke up my own butt. But either way, a huge bid support that was showing at $8 here within the trade itself. But before I get into that, I'll mention short trade thesis in general on the volume profile. This was a little bit different of a third day type of play because of it wasn't so much of a rest day on that second day. It did end up gapping higher, having a green day on that second day a little bit, and having a little bit more fluctuation, a little bit more gas left in it before the market opened today too. So it was in that range of, okay, are you just kind of pre-ejaculating here? Are you just getting a little too running up too quick, too hard, too fast, and you need to simmer a little bit more if you were going to have any bigger move to a $9 level to anywhere above that? And the big day here, especially as I show on my scans, the big volume profile was showing just under that $9 level anyway, from that first day, that where the huge collection of mass of any bag holders would be around there too. So we did kind of have a little attempt at that in pre-market and then dump off from there. So adding that to the short thesis of using that as a potential risk level. And if it goes beyond there, then we know we're kind of in crazy no man's land. We could go a heck of a lot further from there. So using that as a backing, a risk level for the short thesis. And like I mentioned on BFRI of, okay, not just kind of going crazy, not buying within that first minute of, or buying or selling within that first minute of market open. Got short this one at a very nice fill of 848 as we were opening below VWAP and just not producing any continuing price action that I wanted to see, or that would have convinced me that this one had any just life immediately out of the gate. So based upon that, the thesis was I could see us just dumping right away within this first 15 minutes, first half hour of market open. Don't really care or expect or try. We may get in the realm of the same thing as SGMA yesterday of, okay, we could potentially play this thing to the long if it does start to find a base at all. But I think the short trade thesis is there for right now. So got a nice, it did try to consolidate a little bit as it's under view up here, but eventually did end up tanking hard, covering into that first pull. Oh, nicely. It has a little bit more covering that right at that $8 level. And like I was mentioning, huge bid support at $8 with big size. That was so taking off even more right there to see if it bounces a little bit, double bottoms, then we're taking money as it's there, protecting ourselves along the way. But sure enough, that $8 level did break pretty hard and shoved price right down to like 7-8 level here. So covering again into that flush. Just a very easy sit the rest of the day, continuing to take money as it's there. Paying ourselves along the way, and then finally covering in this last little double bottom area there. That was very nice little cover. That was it did kind of double bottom there again before the close, but very nice close for the morning session. Beautiful little trade. If I was perfect on this one, would have been an 8% move in total if I covered everything at that bottom, that double bottom, but even still 6% that I was able to pull from that. A very nice little move for a third day surge play that kind of goes against what these third day surge movers have been doing. These low floaters, third day moves have been awesome. If they're holding up nicely in this multi-day run, they end up pretty squeezing nicely. I'm thinking of the ISPCs, ISIG comes to mind. I may be totally off on those, but going off of those and that market sentiment for what this chart should be doing, going on the reversal of that doesn't seem the most wise, but that was what the market was saying today for that style of trade. Great little experience on that one. SGMA, I'll talk about now for my last short traded this one yesterday, the short side as well, and the long side. And now today, this short trade was based mainly upon the downside, the backside of this move after that little parabolic first screen day, looking to break these lows here around that $13-ish hold level. It was still in this range, this little 13 to 14-ish range here. That I found intriguing, and even looking on the volume profile itself, I found the most collection of volume on that first screen day in this little kind of call it 11.8-ish to 12.5-ish collection there from that first screen day. So using that as a metric to say, okay, I'm gonna play this thing short. If we start to test or come in at levels, it could continue just to ride there and do the same thing that it did yesterday in the afternoon session. Just like it's okay, it's rising a little bit, but it's still in that channel. It's just, there's no movement whatsoever. It's just riding along there. But if we do start to test even lower from that point, we could just start to see some fireworks and this thing just drop off crazily if there's still bag holders. Tough part factoring that into a lot of what the price action, the pure green candles were from the after hours of that first green day in the pre-market too. So if there were any bag holders here, they kind of would be limited, or they would be more institutional holders that might have a little bit more influence on it, that it might not be so swayed by just price alone or emotion to be getting out so easily that way too, or forcing this thing down. But regardless of that, again, as a reminder to me, the 4 million floater company is a negative cash flow. It was short sale restricted. Not too crazy of dilution, but just abysmal volume coming into today. Not a lot of trades coming off, especially compared to that last trading day yesterday. Very, very gross and unfortunate to see. Widespread the whole time too. Just not very fun to trade. And watching it as I'm already in BFRI BLU, thinking, okay, do I want to let it go? And right at this 13.2 mark, I'm saying, as it's dunking under VWAP, I'm saying, I think this could look pretty weak. I think it could. I could see it dumping here. Around this 13.2 mark, and that would have been the optimal entry, but before I could even see it, just totally fell off the table. Didn't offer an opportunity to get short until like this $13 level, so I'm going, shoot. I still think there's a heck of a lot more room below it, but I'm going to go ahead and get short here. Just paper, educational, experimental on this one, and the same thing. I think it's going to be a lot more depth, a lot more downside on this one for what it's got, just playing the kind of backside of the chart there, calling the bluff that this trend is definitely over. So I was able to cover a few into this hard flush. Again, huge slippage, huge widespread, and that's why the reason it was just price would print immediately below these levels. And this candle itself too was it testing and getting us into that previously mentioned like 12.5 to 11-ish range that that huge collection of volume was in around here. That would be potentially interesting to see if we did break below that, how many more people would be underwater and pushing panic button even more so from there. So that was the preparation. I'm in the key going into this one, looking for profit taking around there or potential price action, predicting the future that way. But this one it was lingering around too well. And I got to respect the low floatiness as I'm short. I got to respect the ability for this thing to actually reverse and it tried to reclaim VWAP here, but they rejected, and I was holding strong through all there, not exiting, chickening out too soon. Again, kind of wishing I or should have been looking at this one had I had that 13.2 fill and not being so restricted to an entry of $13. But that's something obviously you have to factor into. You got to trade it how you're trading it, how you're in it, right? And this thing was just, it bounced off of here, higher low, coming back to VWAP. I just didn't think, I was just kind of annoyed with it, frustrated with it, of that widespread, and just continuing to watch it, just bashing my brain into the wall, trying to see how this thing was moving. So ended up covering the last here as it was reclaiming the VWAP. And sure enough, it did have a little perk here. That was what I was looking to avoid, this little perk here with big volume, because I know I would have been scaling out into that and gotten just played like a fiddle. Because factoring that into, I've done that before, the same thing of I'm chickening out, scaring myself out here when I know it's going to be red. I know there's not going to be the continuation there. Famous last words. Sometimes it's going to just halt right in your face and go up to $15 before you can even blink. How many times it's done that before, of that little scare that it's a snake looking to eat that food, and wherever that food is, where those stops are, that's where it's going to go. But if there's no more food left, then it's going to come back to where the food is and start to trade around there. So I could say it right now too. That's just what I knew in my head, even through all of the stupidity, even through the slippage and the widespreads and time that I would have to wasted babysitting this trade. I knew it would end up working out. 11.5 as a nice cover there, little profit target from a 13 entry, or 13-ish entry around there. So intraday short trade, nice little move there. And yeah, I could still see holding this thing short going into the next day too. I don't think I see any sign against that, even though it did come back above VWAP here. It's still under that range of $13, and that volume profile as well too, where that little base, that $13 level, has acted as a key metric before too. From that first green day here, we bounced on the $13 level. On the second day, third day, bounced a little bit off that $13 range here. So now we're kind of under that. But yeah, continuing to just throw out as much, acquire and get as much information as I possibly can on all of these. And I did that well today with the preparation and identifying what's really useful, what can be beneficial to trade upon, and what's just kind of hogwash noise that gets in the way too. So doing that more and more, I think it's going to get me a lot more efficient with that information collection on all of these. I wrote in my journal here too, with how wide these spreads are, a good note to say, do not be placing stops, because had I placed a stop at $13 at my entry point, I would have definitely gotten filled at 13.6 here, at the absolute worst fills for how wide the spread that was, and just stupid, silly price action. It's like trading an OTC almost, for that sense. Those are my traders on the day, and making a little profit out of this one, but nothing to write home about. Just kind of making a winner, taking what this chart wanted to say on the day. Other charts I wanted to mention: CFVI watching. I had it on the watches from yesterday for that little perk. I liked the range it closed at more than I did where it was opening in pre-market today too. So like this specific price level, 13.2. I liked that more. I could maybe do a 30-minute. Yeah, a little bit clearer. Of just this range it was in at 13.2-ish. I thought it was going to provide a little bit more, that we were riding a little bit higher on the surface of the water to potentially bounce upon and acquire, easily squeeze out some more shorts or reverse this trend, or acquire buyers that way, versus where it dumped in the pre-market today, that now we're under here and now it's testing the bottom of this range, and looking at a range, can even call it just a very, very wide range. I wrote it here as like 12.5-ish to like 14-ish, very, very wide range. And how range bound it is that way, thought we were going to see action continue from there. But in reflection today with that price action, as it dumped out of the gate and immediately said, okay, we're going to break to the bottom side of that range, that reason why I didn't want to touch it or give it any attention was I thought it was just kind of fiddle around here, do whatever it wants to do within this wide range and just be choppy as all get out. But as a sentiment to say, I identified that and said it was there as it broke that and said we're going to be going to the bottom side of that with strength today. Potentially easy short call from there. Looking in hindsight, obviously, nice little ride down right away in the morning session. That's what I want to look for as a short, especially too, is just easy, consistent price movement and easy to cover too, in the sign of telling you, okay, this is a hard red candle with volume. cover a price like that too. You don't have to be a mathematician, Scientologist, rocket surgeon to understand when to cover and when to be able to scale out in trades like that too. But didn't really recognize it in the moment there as I was looking at other charts and already in other trades. But that would have been a good thesis too, or good preparation to add to the future of, okay, my thesis coming into this one is saying, I think it's just going to chop around and be blah today, just be so boring and gross. And maybe you get some scalping opportunities, but as a pure beautiful trend, I don't think it's there. But then also adding on top of that fact, identifying another layer. Okay, well, we are kind of at the bottom of this little range. We are identifying here. If it does break to the low there, we could pick up some speed and start to produce some nice consistent movement of price from there. Didn't recognize that, but that's a learning lesson again on that one. This 22 million floater shell company, just as reference for me again. GRTX then I'll mention last here. Second day play. I had this one on the screen recorder today. Awesome little, again, the same thing on CFVI. It was just like iffy. It wasn't so confident or motivated on it to trade it or try and trade it short, but second day little short opportunity. It did have some like scaling up here in the after hours and pre-market today too. Testing. It was actually testing above the high on that first green day in market hours, but did have this little pullback just before market open. Get a little fake out here as it tries, or VWAP rejection, you can call it, as it breaks below there. That had I been watching this one or looking specifically for that, definitely would have gotten in there and potentially squeezed out with big volume as it squeezed back above VWAP to new high day market hours. But then that becomes the top and a nice little trade block there. If you could pick the top perfectly, covering anywhere around here. But that style of trade that I'm looking for, of looking to short into that volume, into that exhaustion of what this move could be, and then just playing the downside from there, a nice little easy cover, and potentially even holding this one into tomorrow, maybe get a little gap down, or again, as it comes into this third day surge play, maybe it does something similar along the lines of BLU. Was that BLU? I just totally forget now. Or SGMA. Yeah, BLU today. Or the same thing that is BLU off of SGMA. That maybe we get a little exhaustion right at the gate, and that's something to short into tomorrow that I'm talking about on GRTX. And maybe we get a little long opportunity if it finds some base around there and comes back to this 2.6, 2.8-ish range. That could be potentially interesting for tomorrow. For reference for me, 23 million floater, and they do have like a 50 million at the money offering lingering there too. So that could be potentially nice to be sitting in as a short, like I did the other day on ABCT. I think that was. That is all I had. No hard scans for me right now, and I'm kind of doubting too. I'm just in that mindset of, as we're in these December months and the week before Christmas, I know it's going to be. We got quad witching day on Friday, but in the past, these quad witching days this year and that last December just were not really that awesome or inspiring in regards to volatility. So not really expecting much from that. And then, going into next week too, just learning from history, I know it's going to be Monday, potentially could see something that Monday, Friday, the previous trading day Friday, this quad witching day, upcoming Friday may produce some amount of volatility, but expectation coming into this one and mentality as of right now is to just not get disappointed if there's not a lot of opportunity going into next week and it's just kind of lackluster like this. We could see some crazy runners, could see, as everybody's piling out for the holidays, maybe some manipulations going on and some movers are moving pretty quickly, pretty crazy. But we're not going to bank anything crazy on those or try to force more or bag hold and hope that somebody's pushing this thing hard and we're able to get a fill there. But continuing to learn more and more each and every single day through all of this, and I just love it more and more every single day too. And I'm continuing to evolve myself and who I am as a trader, and the work that I'm doing, and understanding what my personality fits best into what style of trading, what style of short, long, what patterns fit best to, adding more to the playbook. It's absolutely awesome. I sincerely thank you guys for watching. We will catch you guys on the next one.